Good evening and welcome to the April 1st, 2025 meeting of the Gary Common Council. As is our custom, we'll begin with prayer led by Councilman Washington.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, let the words of our mouths and meditations of our heart, Lord, let them be acceptable in your sight. Let us have a productive meeting for the growth and development of the city of Gary. In Yeshua Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please stand with me for our Pledge of Allegiance. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown,
Present.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Present.
Councilman Halliburton,
Present.
Councilwoman Ivy,
Present.
Councilman Tolliver,
Present.
Councilman Washington,
Present.
Councilman Winston,
Present.
Councilman Williams,
Here.
President Latham.
Here.
Madam President, there are 9 present, 0 absent.
Thank you. With a total of 9 present and 0 absent, the Gary Common Council has a quorum to do business. Now for the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of our previous meeting.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, colleagues, for the move and the second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell, Councilman Halliburton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy,
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver,
Abstain.
Councilman Washington,
Yes.
Councilman Winston,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, the vote is 9 to 0.
I think eight yeas, 1 abstention. All right. Oliver.
8 yeas, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a total of, with 8 yeas and 1 abstention, the reading of our minutes of the previous meeting have been passed. Colleagues, you have before you CPR 2025-03. Can I entertain a motion to add that to tonight's agenda?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ivy, for the motion, and I think I heard Councilman Washington for the second. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Councilman Halliburton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy,
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver,
Yes.
Councilman Washington. Councilman Winston,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, the vote is 9 to 0.
Thank you. With a vote of 9 yeas and 0 nays, CPR 2025-03 has been added to tonight's agenda. And now for assignment of council pending ordinances and resolutions.
CPO 2025-18, an ordinance of the City of Gary, Indiana prohibiting graffiti within the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary.
Public safety.
CPO 2025-19, an ordinance approving additional salaries and operating budgets for the City of Gary's Filming Fund for calendar year 2025, sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2025-20, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 917 Vermillion Street to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner Margaret Spann, sponsored by the Gary Zoning Department, petitioner Margaret Spann, 917 Vermillion Street, Gary, Indiana.
Planning and development.
CPO 2025-21, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 7300 Locust Avenue to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner Margaret Spann, sponsored by the Gary Zoning Department, petitioner Margaret Spann, 7300 Locust Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Planning and development.
CPO 2025-22, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 1101 St. Joseph Avenue to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner John Sarwick, sponsored by Gary Zoning Department. Petitioner John Sarwick, 1101 North St. Joseph Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Planning and Development.
CPO 2025-23, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 1924 Hovey Place to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner Wayne Young, sponsored by the Gary Zoning Department. Petitioner Wayne Young, 1924 Hovey Place, Gary, Indiana.
Planning and Development.
CPO 2025-24, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for a property located at 1175 Shelby, 8400 Pine Street, to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner Margaret Spann, sponsored by Gary Zoning Department. Petitioner Margaret Spann, 310 Maple Road, Northfield, in Illinois.
Planning and Development.
CPO 2025-25, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 8045 Oak Avenue, Gary, Indiana, to be used as a short-term rental property by petitioner Scott Schneiderberg, sponsored by Gary Zoning Department. Petitioner Scott Schneiderberg, 1655 North Claremont Avenue, Unit 2, Chicago, Illinois.
Planning and Development.
CPR 2025-03, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary approving the continuation of local disaster emergency related to the March 19, 2025 weather emergency, sponsored by Lori Latham, President of the Council.
Planning and Development.
Madam President, ends pending ordinance and resolutions unassigned.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Halliburton.
Madam Chair, the Public Safety Committee has before it CPO 2025-18. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Linda B. Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Miriam Ivey. Madam Chairman, the majority of the committee has approved CPO 2025-18 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilman Halliburton. Councilwoman Brown.
For the record, our police orders reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell? Yes. And Councilwoman? Whitson?
Yes.
Madam President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2025-19 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Washington.
Madam Chair, may I read the council pending ordinances in unison?
Yes, if no objection.
Thank you. Madam Vice President, the Planning and Development Committee has the following ordinances before it for its review. CPO 2025-21, CPO 2025-22, CPO 2025-23, CPO 2025-24, CPO 2025-25, and CPO 2025-03. For the record, I approve these ordinances for reporting out to the council. Councilman Wessington.
Yes.
Councilwoman Latham.
Yes.
For the record, the majority of the Planning and Development Committee has approved those following ordinances for reporting out to the council.
Councilman Washington, and 24 and 25. Did you get 24 and 25?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you get 20?
20.
25, 20?
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't even put 20 down.
I
And
dropped a lot on you.
No. That's my mistake. CPO 2025-20 also for reporting out to the council. Councilman Wessington,
Yes.
Councilwoman Latham.
Yes.
For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the reminder.
Thank you, Councilman Washington. Councilman Halliburton. You just, Councilwoman Brown, we'll let you go.
Madam President, the Finance Committee would like to report out CPO 2025-19.
Councilman Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Planning and Development would like to report out to the council CPO 2025-20, 2025-21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and -03 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you. Councilman Halliburton?
Thank you. The Public Safety Committee would like to report out CPO 2025-18.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor for colleagues with special and select. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Good evening. Boards and commissions would like to announce several vacancies. We have the following council appointments open. Redevelopment Commission, 2 vacancies. The Transportation Board, 2 vacancies, a Democrat and a Republican. The Gary Community School Board, 1 vacancy. Economic Development Commission, 1 vacancy. Fire Civil Service Commission, 1 vacancy, Republican. Police Civil Service Commission, 2 vacancies, Democrat and a Republican. Individuals that are interested in representing the Gary Common Council, please send your letter of interest along with a resume to 401 Broadway, Suite 209, Gary, Indiana 46402. Attention Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell, or you can send an email, lcaldwell@gary.gov. The deadline for resumes is Friday, April the 18th by 5 p.m. We will have a public meeting to discuss the resumes with you present Monday, April the 21st at 5:30 p.m. here in the chamber. I have one other announcement. April is Autism Awareness Month. Some of you may ask, what is autism? Autism is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder that typically appears during the first 3 years of life. It is the result of a neurological disorder that affects the normal functioning of the brain, impacting development in the areas of social interaction and communication skills. Both children and adults with autism often show difficulties in verbal and nonverbal communication, social interactions, leisure or play activities, and behaviors. Facts and statistics. 1 in 44 children are diagnosed with autism. Since 2000, the autism prevalence rate has been consistently increasing from 1 to 150 to now 1 in 44. Drowning accounts for 90% of deaths for autistic individuals, 14 or younger, who wandered or bolted into water. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to be diagnosed with autism. Autism affects all ethnic and social economic groups. Anxiety disorders affect up to 40% of individuals with autism. The diagnosis rate for autism is rising by 10 to 17% each year. Vaccines do not cause autism. Over the next decade, an estimated 700,000 to 1.1 million autistic teens will enter adulthood and age out of school-based services. The cost of caring for autistic Americans is estimated to rise to $460+ billion by 2025, just this year. In the absence of more effective interventions and support, an estimated 175 to 196 billion of these costs are for adult services. 32% of children with autism have an intellectual disability. Children who receive an autism diagnosis by age 4 are 50 times more likely to receive services. And over 7 billion individuals in the United States are on the autism spectrum. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disability in the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell have many of us wearing blue today in recognition of Autism Awareness Month. Thank you so much for your advocacy.
Thank you. I forgot to say that part.
Councilman Tolliver.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to give a big shout out to the Cougars of West Side. This past weekend, they ran at the Hoosier State Relays indoor meet, and they placed 3rd place in the state of Indiana in the 4x4. Special shout out to Kayla Williams, Priscilla Burton, Michaela Bird, Kiera Kaysen, Harold Tate, Coach Jeray Proto-Guider, and Coach Stalling. I just think that it's remarkable what those young ladies did over the past weekend. They might not have all the amenities that other schools have, but they have each other, and they show true Gary grit. So it's something that we should commend them on and keep pushing them to greatness and celebrating them as much as possible, because our children are definitely the future. So I want to congratulate them, keep on going, and I can't wait to see what you do this spring.
Any other colleagues for Special and Select? Well, I want to be the first, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, to welcome Councilman Miles Tolliver. This is not his first meeting, but it's his first council meeting and first general meeting, so congratulations. Thank you for joining us. I have also invited a good friend of mine. His name is Roosevelt Glenn. He's a board member of the Innocence Project. I've invited him to our meeting just to share his story and more information about the Innocence Project. Mr. Glenn, as you come to the podium, I'll just share some bits from your bio. Roosevelt Glenn's journey is one of remarkable fortitude and unwavering determination in the face of injustice. In 1993, he was wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit, thrust into a tragic ordeal that saw him unjustly labeled as a sex offender and incarcerated for 17 years of his 36-year sentence. After being paroled but not exonerated, he continued to fight for his innocence. 8 years later, he succeeded. In 2016, he published a book about his experiences, Innocent Nightmare, and today he stands as a beacon of hope and inspiration, channeling his harrowing experiences into advocacy for the wrongfully convicted. His remarkable journey serves as a poignant reminder of the indomitable power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. Welcome, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you, Vice President Latham, Council, for this opportunity. My purpose for being here is to really introduce Indiana Innocent Project to the city of Gary and to the council members here. We had a big opening in August of 2024, but that information didn't get back to my area. Neither did the press release. So my purpose today is to let everyone know that the Indiana Innocent Project is up and running, and their website is indianainnocentproject.org. And there, you can apply for representation. If you are wrongfully convicted in prison, and if anybody here know anyone in prison that's fighting a wrongful conviction or has been wrongfully convicted, they should go to that website and get help and representation, and it costs nothing through the whole process. Before I tell you more about the Indiana Innocent Project, I'd just like to give you a little of my background on how I got to this point. As a citizen here in Gary, I've done everything I thought America would want me to do. I went to school, got a job, paid taxes, obeyed the laws of the land, which I done. And one day while at work, I was ambushed and arrested by the Hammond Police Department. I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke because that day I was expecting to get a safety award. And I went to the safety meeting, and there I was ambushed and arrested. So after I found out it wasn't a joke, me and my coworkers that were arrested that day, 2 of us ended up being convicted. Myself and Daryl Pinkins. And unfortunately, Daryl Pinkins, he passed away February of 2024. So you could say I've been through hell, but I made it. I stared death in the eyes. I've had suicide on my back, low self-esteem, hopelessness, but I put my faith in God, and he gave me the power to endure 17 years in the penitentiary, being released on parole, being forced to register as a sexual violent predator, being forced to take therapeutic classes for rapists, child molesters, incest. And after all that, they found that I was the wrong person. But it's okay now because I've been exonerated. Glenn and Pinkins' names appear on the National Registry for exonerees. Also, as bad as it was for me, I was able to take that pain, that suffering, and turn it into a positive. I became an advocate for justice. I became a voice for the voiceless. I wrote the book, Innocent Nightmare. I was also invited down to the State House by Professor Fran Watson, an IU law professor, and Beth Powers, a policy advocate from the Innocent Project of New York. There they had myself and another exoneree by the name of Christine Bunch share our stories to a Senate committee in support of House Bill 1150, which passed, and Indiana became the 35th state to compensate their wrongfully convicted. Also, Pinkins and Glenn's story was aired on CBS 48 Hours in a documentary, 1-hour documentary called Guilty Until Proven Innocent. And tonight I'm here because I can publicly announce that I am one of 7 board members of the Indiana Innocent Project. The Indiana Innocent Project is a not-for-profit organization, 501(c)(3) ready, and our mission is to investigate cases of meritorious innocence claim, secure DNA testing when biological evidence exists, advocate for the release and exoneration of innocent individuals, provide services to exonerees, advocate for criminal justice change to prevent wrongful incarcerations and convictions, and sustain academic collaborations for student learning, now here in IU, Indiana. The students have opportunity to work these cases under the supervision of law professors. Now, why I think is important to our city? Because there was a report put out, the American Constitution Society, after we got up and running, they done some research, and they put out a research article, and it reads like this: the prosecution and conviction of innocent people in Indiana is a problem of serious concerns. Since 1989, there have been 47 exonerees in Indiana. However, there have been 11 exonerations in Indiana since 2017. Almost 25% of Indiana's total number of exonerations have occurred over the last 6 years. These wrongful convictions have a racial dimension. Specifically, 22 of the 47 Indiana exonerees, 47%, are Black Americans, whereas Black Americans comprise only 10% of Indiana's population. Because almost half of the wrongful convictions in Indiana involve Black Americans, significant questions exist about equal justice in the Indiana criminal justice system. Lake County alone has 6 exonerations, the highest in Indiana. But what the article didn't say, all 6 live right here in Gary. I'm one of them, Mr. Pinkins is too. So my hope today is really to just get the word out, because help is available now when years ago it never was. We used to have to reach out to other states to get people to come in and try to help. But right now in Indiana, you can just go to IndianaInnocentProject.org and hit the button, drop down, and you can select representation and careers. They have 2 positions open as well. They're looking for a legal litigator and executive director. And all information is under careers on the website. So I want to thank you all for this time. I'm gonna make it quick because I know we got a lot to do. But my hope is just everybody would help me get this information out. And there's going to be future situations where we want to put an office here in Gary. That's our future plans, which will be coming here hopefully in the near future, I'm hoping. So I thank you all for your time. And if you have any questions, and I also have a book for each council member that I wrote. If you don't mind, I could just give to Councilwoman Ivy. She can hand them down, and Councilman Dwayne, and he can hand them down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. I read his book. Would absolutely, thank you so much, Mr. Glenn, and would absolutely encourage everybody to read his book. If no one else for special and select, we will go to public comment. It's the part of our agenda that we are on.
Madam President,
Yes, Councilwoman Ivy.
Mr. Glenn, thank you for coming to speak today. That's very important. What you said today and your story is very touching, and I'm glad that you made it through. I just would like to ask President Latham if you had a flyer or something that we could put on our social media page so that we can, just in the near future, maybe we could be a part of sharing that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Mr.
Thank you.
Glenn,
Yes, sir.
how you doing?
All right.
I would like to get your information. We belong to the board of directors for a program. We mentor young Black men every weekend at IU, and
Okay.
I would like for you to come in and speak to them.
Sure,
All right?
no problem.
I appreciate you. I really do.
All
Thank
right.
you for
If
your
I don't see
testimony.
you, I know you're busy today. President Latham has all my information.
You can put it in a book. in the cover.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other members for special and select? And thank you again, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you.
If not, we'll begin our public comment, beginning with Lorraine Glenn. Did you not intend to speak? Oh, please be reminded that you have 2 minutes to speak when you, our parliamentarian, Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell, is taking the time. When you come up to speak, please come up to the podium and press the button to the right to turn the mic on. Thank you.
To the right?
It's on.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for allowing Roosevelt to speak, because it was truly a nightmare. Traveling up and down the highway for 17 years, going to about 5 different prisons, and knowing that he's innocent. Can you imagine just being in a cell 5 by 8 for 17 years for a crime that you didn't commit? And he had 2 daughters and a son, and they were 2, 4, and 6 or 7 when he went to prison. And to try to explain to the kids where their father was, that was a task in itself. So I just want to say thank you, because we have been vindicated now, and the fight continues for justice. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Glenn.
Madam Chair, Ms. Glenn,
Councilman Washington?
Ms. Glenn, can you come back up to the podium? Are you Mr. Glenn's spouse?
Yes.
Okay, this is what I want to tell you. I want to give you kudos and say God bless you, because there are many men who are incarcerated who suffered the same fate and their wives left. You stayed in spite of knowing and having faith that your husband didn't do what he was accused of. And you were there to take care of the children, to continuously encourage them and keep their head up and explaining to them what happened to their father. And you stayed for 17 years to have your husband exonerated because you believed in your husband that he didn't do what they said he do. So we need to give a round of applause to this mighty woman of God also. And I just want to say thank you for not giving up on your husband and staying by his side as his helpmeet. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You know, statistically, the kids were supposed to be a failure, you know, when you have a father absent in their lives. But Roosevelt's kids, one is an engineer, one is in the service, and one is a medical assistant.
Blessings.
A
Blessings.
manager. So they all doing well. So thank you very much.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Mrs. Glenn. Yes, Councilman Halliburton.
Mr. Glenn, I also would like to hark what everyone is saying, but I just want to deeply say I'm sorry. And I know everyone in his place wants to say they're sorry as well. We are sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Halliburton. Next up, we have Bruce Curry. Please state your name and address for the record. And again, just a reminder, 2 minutes to speak. The time is being taken by our parliamentarian, Councilwoman Linda Barnes-Caldwell.
My name is Bruce Curry. I'm at 1771 Marshall Street, Gary, Indiana. And first of all, I just want to respect you two, brother, for what happened. It's hard to follow something like that because that is a beautiful story. And we want, he's going to be great for the community and helping the community and the young people. And that's what I'm about. Two areas I want to talk real quick. One is I support the Tolliston project that is right across the street from my house. I want to let the YMCA, the medical, that whole group that Eddie's was at the meeting. It was a great community meeting. I support that. And I support economic development in Gary. The one that I had some concerns, I went to the zoning committee, was the proposal for light industry in an area called Beckman School. And my concern, I told them that I agree with having, I don't want to run any economic development out of Gary. It needs it. But the location is not appropriate. When you start looking at locations for site selection, there's a lot of intangible costs. And people, they can make a quick deal, hey, we're bringing jobs. But it's short term. When you look at that's a neighborhood that needs residential. And the 5 points you look at real quick is labor costs, supply chain logistics. There's more to this than just a location. There's a lot of things of why they want to pick that spot. We know trucking is there and it's across the street, but you could have that location on the other side of the road. The other thing is there's utility infrastructure items that need to occur in light industry. It's going to affect the residents. We saw the storms, we saw the tornado, we knew what happened in our neighborhood. Yeah, I was really appreciative in 21st when I saw the NIPSCO come out there and get that community after tornadoes. There's going to be more tornadoes come through. This light industry, we want it residential. Real quick, I got.
Mr. Curry, you're
Yes.
up. Time's up.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Curry. Thank you, Mr. Curry. Next up, we have Terry Martin.
Latham and the members of the Gary Common Council, the mayor in his absence, and other city officials. My name is Terry Martin, and I'm the president of the Midtown Newark Block Club. And I am here today to rise in opposition to this project for a couple of reasons. Let me be brief. Notice we have been uninformed and underinformed the entire time that this project, I was around when they came in 2022, and we didn't hear anything about this for 2 years. Then all of a sudden, had it not been for GARD and other people who were watching over to let us know that this project had now come back to the table, we would not have known what was going on. The petitioners' meeting, they were scheduled for us at a church. We never had it. It was canceled. We didn't even know. People went up there. There was nobody there. I watched the video from the planning committee meeting, and I watched really in disgust as individuals got up that were not even probably from this community and certainly not from our neighborhood, talking about jobs, 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 not even knowing what kind of jobs, whether they're qualified for their jobs, are there jobs that require special training, certifications. We don't even know if those are jobs that are available for Gary people. We've never been told how many jobs or what the wages would be. There was a gentleman that rose and said, nobody wants to come to Gary, and I see him here tonight. And I want to say to you, sir, I'll accept your silent apology for that, because why are you here then? My question is, it's about money. This is the issue. There are other places that this can be built south of 25th Avenue. There's a wonderful business corridor there. You've bought a cheap piece of property, and you're trying to windfall off of it and pay, I don't know what you paid for it at the tax sale, but you're going to make millions off of it on our backs. We are one of the most historic communities and neighborhoods in this city. We are the place where black people could not, that's the only place that people could live. And there's still people there holding on to their homes and trying to push through.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Next up, thank you. I have been trying to make this name out, so I apologize in advance. It could be Patty Gibson Key. Please teach me how to say your name. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for hearing me again. I'm here about the Airbnb at 6110 Ash Avenue. You all did receive letters that you know that there was some activity that was going on at this property here, and the people that live there, we were at the zoning board stressing our complaint as well. And the lady that's here that's representing these people, she was part of this when it was not in front of it, before it came to the zoning board. I don't know how it got to you all, but they was doing this anyway, and she was the person that was managing it at that time. So she's here again today. So I'm just standing here today, just confirming what we want. We do not want the Airbnb at 6110. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson King. Next, we'll have Carl Champion.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I rise before the Council to express my objections to the truck stop center that's to be built or that's to be pursued where the old Beckman School lies now. I'm a business owner. I've been a business investor on Grant Streets since 1968. We still have properties there. I'm about a half block north and a half block west of this location. I think it's an albatross to the community. I think it draws against what this community needs. I think it deviates from any development that's ever to go into this property. If we look around our city council, we have truck stops popping up like dandelions and wild trees. We need to put an end to it because it's curtailing where development can go. I don't know what your precision is or your decision is upon a long-range business plan, but I don't see one on the table. And people are coming in from outside the city choosing prime property to want to slide in a truck stop or a landing for trucks to hold. It's dangerous for the community. It's dangerous for kids that walk the sidewalks in the community. I saw one of my employees killed on 32nd and Grant because the truck from one of the truck stops chose to piggyback behind another truck coming onto Grant Street, and he hit an unsuspecting patron. We don't need it. We need you to stand with us and support that this does not happen. We need you to work with us to put something in the community that's going to drive this community for jobs. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Champion. Now for the other Mr. Champion, Mr. Gene Champion.
I'm here to express myself as my brother because I have businesses on Grant Street as well. On 24th and Grant, I had a door company there. And I remember this project came up once before with contractor Webb. We donated 50 doors, and we went over there and helped Mr. Webb to do what he was going to do, and he was rejected. So in turn, we had to go back and get our doors, put it back in the storage because Mr. Webb, the community didn't accept Mr. Webb as a good candidate for that property. Now, on 11th and Grant, they call this a commercial center. The city of Gary have been fighting a junkyard. On 11th, I have 2 or 3 businesses down there on Grant Street. They've been fighting this property because it's a junkyard, and they came in saying, I don't know how they got in or what, I don't know the details, but they haven't been able to get them out. Now, recently, across the street from that site, there's another junkyard. Now, and as my brother stated, 15th Avenue, all the streets torn up, we can't afford to fix them. When they come in here and tear up stuff, we can't afford to fix it. And they don't care nothing about our community. Don't nobody, I don't know, no,
Mr. Champion?
I don't know, I'm gonna. I don't know all the details, but we have on the west side, we have on the south side, we have every piece of land. Here come someone.
Thank you, Mr. Champion. Thank you. Next up, we have Jenny Rutherham.
Good evening, Jenny Rutherham, 7,000 block of Hemlock Avenue, Gary, Indiana. I rise in opposition to CPO 2025-17. I'm not sure what the presentation will claim, but this did get an unfavorable recommendation from our planning director. It was voted unanimously to be sent to council with an unfavorable recommendation, as we've heard from several neighbors and business owners adjacent to the area. They believe this development will be a detrimental influence on the surrounding neighborhood. I think in general, when people come seeking PUDs to develop in an area that isn't zoned for what they want to do, they should be held to the highest standard. And I think the existing PUD is weak. They wrote it, they gave themselves a lot of leeway in terms of what they would be bringing. I think it needs to be strengthened in general to be more protective of the community than a normal development would have to be. If they want to bring manufacturing, they need to incorporate manufacturing guidelines, which it doesn't currently. And I also think it should have to identify clear and immediate benefits to the community, like any kind of community benefits agreement that would happen if they were getting tax benefits from the city. Here they're getting a zoning benefit from the city that does not exist. And so we should hold them to something. We should know what they're going to actually provide to this community. And it can't be this vague promise of jobs when they don't have a tenant lined up. They can't tell you how many jobs. I heard lots of references to a facility in East Chicago at the council committee meeting on Thursday, and I heard a lot of people saying, oh, this is going to bring jobs. And that facility seems to be largely empty. Also at the committee meeting, they talked about having done trucking studies, other kinds of studies. I don't know if any of those studies were provided, but obviously residents have concerns about trucks coming in and out, not on Grant, but on side streets adjacent to their homes. And all of these things should be satisfied before we approve.
Thank you. Uh-oh. Michaela Spangelberg. And after her, we'll have Gary Lee and then Doreen Carey. So if you all just make your way to the podium in that order.
It's a pleasure. Oh, is it not on? Is it on? Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to see all of you again. It's been a while since I've been able to attend a meeting. I wish it was under better circumstances, because we have a long history here of seeing these kind of developments and these kinds of businesses like proposed again and again. Sometimes it doesn't even get this far. Sometimes it goes all the way and then eventually turns into nothing except another abandoned property, another abandoned development, another, failed endeavor that has already had a negative consequence on a community that can't be taken back. And so, when this administration came in, I know that there was a stated intent to develop with purpose and to place, allow industrial development that made sense for our community in places that made good sense for the business, good sense for the community. This makes sense for neither, frankly. And I was happy to see that the Guard had featured something in their newsletter about a previous administration's attempt at something that seemed quite similar that has now essentially failed, and that brought to light a lot of other bad behavior on the part of many people that I had hoped we'd turned a corner to get away from. This development, if it's approved, will mark the beginning of a return very clearly back to business as usual in a way that this community cannot survive and that the city can't survive. We have endured enough of, just off the cuff, poorly planned, thoughtless, proposals and developments that have caused harm. And
Thank
it's
you,
time
Dr.
for something
Spangelberg.
better. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Lee and then Doreen Carey.
Good evening, Gary Lee. I'm a longtime resident of the 5th District. I stand opposed to the Beckman School development. I would like all the council people here to think about the message you will send if you okay this project. What you are going to say is, hey, everybody, all the developers from all over the country, come to Gary. We will ignore our specialists that we hired that reported out and recommended negatively for this development. We will ignore that. We will ignore all of the people from the 5th District, and we will let you come in and give us a sales pitch. Their sales pitch was very good. I admit that, but it's not the development we want for Gary. I would rather see this council pass a resolution and seek out a developer to come in and build 40, 50 homes on this spot. You can find somebody that would be willing to do that. These people here, these developers, they're smart. They are very good at what they've tried to sell you, but they could also come in and build houses on that property. See, shakes his head, no, can't do it. But there is somebody that would build homes and bring us people to Gary. We don't need the same old story that we've been told for years that you have to develop to bring people in. No, you can bring people in and then develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Doreen Carey. I reside at 7304 Indian Boundary, Gary, Indiana, 46403. I also am speaking in opposition to CPO 2025-17. The rezoning of the former Beckman School property in a residential district through this proposed planned unit development, or PUD, will not only put the Beckman residential neighborhood at risk, but will create a precedent in this city for developers to create their own zoning in the former school properties throughout the city of Gary that could be detrimental to neighborhood health, safety, and viability. There is no certainty that the Beckman School rezoning proposal as to what type of development will occur. No business that has expressed an interest, no proof of jobs or benefits to the surrounding neighborhood. There has further been no effort by the developers to respond to the very clear opposition by property neighbors that was expressed at the Planning Commission public hearing that, in addition to the unfavorable recommendation by the Planning Department, resulted in the Planning Commission voting to deny the rezone proposal. I'm requesting that the council members vote to oppose this proposal because as there is no way to determine if the developer's PUD will result in the highest and best use of the property or that the current and future protection of the residential neighborhood will occur. The city administration is planning to update the city comprehensive plan and the code of zoning ordinance. There is a plan for a public review for the type of development the Gary residents would like to see on the former school properties in the city. I'm asking that the council oppose CPO 2025-17 and allow for the opportunity for a public planning process to occur that will result in consistent and protective decisions to be made and measures adopted for the beneficial reuse of former school properties in the city of Gary, and particularly tonight for the former Beckman School.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. John Allen is next, followed by Jamal Southern, and then Carolyn McCready. Good afternoon.
Citizens that are in objection. I am for. Those of you who know me, you probably heard me talk on the radio about this project. You probably heard and saw some of my videos, particularly videos depicting the current state of this school. But most of us, we talk about what if scenarios. I want to talk about a what is scenario of the school. A lot of us forget Mr. Adrena Sauciado, found dead in Midtown in the school at 13th and Harrison because it was abandoned and left undeveloped. It's down today, but I want to talk about some facts and reality. I have property in Midtown, Gary. I own businesses there. I personally participated in 150 plus real estate transactions in Gary. I also own a restaurant in Midtown across the street from Roosevelt High School. I want to see the development of Midtown in a positive direction as much as anybody. But in 2000, Midtown only had 12,000 citizens. It remained at 12,000 until 2020. Today in 25 is only 9,136 citizens. Most of the youth in Midtown is gone. So most of the people who could tie their boots up and get on the ground and stack 2 bricks on top of each other, they are not there. I wish they were, but they're not. And the sad reality is we have to have land usage. And I don't want to get emotional about it, but I want to bring some facts to the table. Commercial property pays 3%. Multi-unit pays 2%. Residential pays 1%. That don't mean one is necessarily better than the other, but a city can only be ran on taxes, fines, and fees. The 1% yielded from a residential property, it eats into the tax base more than a commercial property. Commercial property owners are not using the sanitation for garbage. Only residential, we pay for our own. We're not using the same level of police, usually have security at a large facility like this. We don't have ambulance and other services. That's not a knock on the people that do. But at some point, we have to take the burden off the same people that the guard is seeking to protect. They're going to have to pay more if we don't figure out a way for them to pay less.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Next, we have Jamal Southern. please, everyone, try to adhere to the 2-minute limit. Our parliamentarian is taking the time. Jamal Southern? Going once? Carolyn McCready is next.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very glad to be here. I also rise in opposition to 2025-17. I think that everyone has spoken very eloquently in so many ways about this, but there are a few things that I'd like to add to what everyone else has said. I looked at the presentation that the company has put out and their basis for proposal. They say that they want to do advanced manufacturing and light assembly. They want to create office space and distribution. Let me go back to what advanced manufacturing actually means. It means working with fossil fuels, burning them, many times plastic. This is a kind of a buzzword for not actually indicating that this is what they want to do. So we're talking about an operation that might need air permits, and we know we don't need that anymore. And Gary, we don't need any more pollution. They also want to do light assembly and distribution. What does distribution mean? Trucks. They have in their outline, their rendering, they have 45 docks. 45 docks indicated, that means trucks, right? So in the back they have the trucks, and in the front they have room for cars and offices. So they want to make it look like this is going to be a lovely office space. Why would you have 45 docks for trucks if you're not going to be running trucks in and out? Again, another environmental issue. And the final thing is, I was in East Chicago today, and maybe I got this wrong, but it seems to me that what was indicated was that they are responsible for having built a huge warehouse in East Chicago. Well, I checked into this. We made a lot of calls, and they didn't do it. They had nothing to do with building that facility.
Ms. McCready?
Thank you, Ms. McCready. Next up is Monique Love. Monique Love? After Ms. Love, it looks like someone named, last name Allen. I can't make out the first name. That's you next?
Yes. I'm from Gary, Indiana, but I work out in Chicago, Illinois, and I think it would be best to get a job for, I think Beckman would be good for somebody like us to work out here in the city of Gary, Indiana, instead of going away to Illinois. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Are you Mr. Allen?
Addison.
Mr. Addison?
Yes, we work together both in Chicago.
And we work way out there in Illinois, and it's like, you gotta get up 3 hours extra early to go to work and everything. I said, but I think it would be good to work out here, like, close around to home.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is David Gearman. After Mr. Gearman is Jeff Sedglowski, and then Teresa Woodard. David Gearman, going once. I saw him in the back. Okay. Jeff Sedglowski.
Evening, Council. My name is Jeff
Good evening.
Sedlowski, as you said. I lived in Gary for 27 years, been a contractor here for 25. So I just want to thank you, Council, for working with the city and making it prosper again. I've sat through several budget meetings last year, and now to see the city starting to work again is a blessing to me, because I've always had hope in the city. So I just want to thank you for your work in the city and with the funds you have and what you do. And also working with Republicans and Democrats on those committees, and to help us make a prosperous Gary again together. So I just want to give you a shout out and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. Teresa Woodard. Teresa Woodard, going once. Kwabena Razuli. After Kwabena, we'll have Bertha Thomas Franklin.
Good evening, Council. I rise in opposition. Rode by East Chicago today to look at the facility that's there. It dominates the community where it is. To one side of it, I think the west side of it is more industrial and kind of undeveloped area, and probably some more industrial. Right adjacent to it is some residential homes where homes are there. They are there, and I know we talked about people not complaining too much. Well, somebody mentioned 45 truck bays. I saw at least 19 there, but those trucks are coming there now because it's basically only saw one tenant in that building. And I think it was built, 2 or 3 years ago and only one tenant. So we need to keep that in mind. Also rode by the Beckman site recently once again and saw the condition of the Beckman site. And if these people who have this building really cared about this community, they would have did something to take some of that trash up, to clean up that. None of us want that. But if you keep it looking like that, you'll make more of it say, oh, we got to do anything but that. We got to get rid of it. So I think that, I don't know, that's something that may have been purposely done. Something to think about, because the place looks horrific. Getting off Grant Street, going south, of course, we got the truck stops. Trucks are going that way. Going north, we don't have as many trucks. When we do this, we're opening up Pandora's box. I live in the Glen Park section. We have plenty of abandoned schools there, too. Do we want this sort of thing to happen all around our city? No. We do want commercial development. This is not the right place for it. The industry I work in, we deal with property condition assessments. I look at facilities like this all the time. Had to follow up on a project today. I called the building department out in Beaverton, right outside of Dayton, where they had the same sort of facility. I asked the guy, do you all put these sort of light industrial places in neighborhoods? I already knew the answer. He said, no, we don't. You don't do this. No. Help them go somewhere else, not here, not there.
Thank you, Mr. Razuli. I skipped the name. I think it's Altherine Sweeney.
Good evening. My name is Altheria Sweezer.
Altheria Sweezer. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Sweezer.
No problem. I stay on 2347 Lincoln Street, and that's right down the street from Beckman School. I am in opposition to this being put in my neighborhood. This is where I have lived. Well, my parents lived there, and then I moved in after they passed. But this is no, we don't need it. It's a residential area. We still have kids in that area that ride their bikes up and down the street. And you know how kids are, and you know how truck drivers are. I don't want them there.
Thank you, Ms. Sweezer.
My name is Bertha Thomas Franklin. I'm Althea Sweezer's sister. We've been living there all my life. I'm 66 years old. Now I moved to 13th and Lincoln. I do not want this company there. We have too many kids. Build something that's for them, not for our community. Anything for our community other than trucks. That's an unsafe place for our kids. That's unsafe for me. And I wish you would think about it twice before you let this go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. And that concludes our public portion. We'll now have our council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final reading.
CPO 2025-12, an ordinance amending authorization to the rollover of temporary interfund loans due between the City of Gary funds for 2024, sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-12?
So be it.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, colleagues, for the motion and the second. We'll now have our overview by Controller Green. Welcome.
Good evening. In this ordinance, we are requesting an amendment to the authorization of the roll of ordinances that was passed last year. We have to, by State Board of Accounts regulation, pass any outstanding ordinance, any outstanding loans prior to the end of the year. So in order for us to meet the deadline date of December, we submitted it in November. Since that time, we have repaid some loans, and we're updating. I believe everyone may have gotten a schedule of the loans that we intended to pay and what we did pay. I can go through that very quickly if you like.
Sure, thank you.
We paid in 2024 $2,247,456 in loans. The media fund, we owe $1 million. We paid back $300,000. In coding, we owe $500,000. We paid it all back. Gary Sanitary District, we owe $2.9 million. We paid back $1,007,127. Consolidated Area TIF, we owed $640,800. We paid back $200,000. And for the wheel tax, we owed $240,329. We paid all of it. For 2025, we have paid Gary Sanitary District the balance of $1.9 million, so it's fully paid. And we are looking to pay additional loans this year, but we're waiting to House Bill 1448, the results, before we determine if we can pay any more this year.
Colleagues, any discussion? Councilman Whittington?
Yes. Been a lot of conversation in regards to the direction that Gary is headed in, and we talk a lot about increasing revenue. I do want to stop and pause and say, job well done.
Thank you.
If no one understands what we just discussed here, the city of Gary is getting out of debt within the next 2 years. That's huge, massive. So in light of everyone's momentous discussion and things that are rivaling spirits, take heed in knowing that we are moving in the right direction. And a decision today, no matter what it is, whether you're for it or against it, we have been moving in the right direction. So take note, find some positivity, find something to laugh about, smile about, and cheer on each other, knowing that we are headed in a great direction. So liven up. Everyone's so dismal. Like, I know it's going to be a long night, but let's get this done. Let's go. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilman Whittington. Other colleagues, any other discussion? I agree. It's good to see us getting out of the hole. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Halliburton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver.
Yes.
Councilman Washington.
Yes.
Councilman Whittington.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown. President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, vote is 9-0.
Thank you. With a total of 9, with a vote of 9-0, CPO 2025-12 has passed and is so ordered.
CPO 2025-13, an ordinance of the City of Gary, Indiana, amending the city fee schedule ordinance 9377 by increasing and establishing fees for the City of Gary departments. Sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Yes, I'm sorry, colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-13?
Second.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell, seconded by Councilman Whittington. I understand we have an amendment, so we need to amend by substitution? Do we have an amendment?
It's not an amendment.
No? Yes, Attorney Molina. What's different?
The only difference from the one previously submitted that we reviewed at committee in depth is some film fees that we added in. We had with the new. Oh, are we on 13? I'm so sorry.
Right, 13, establishing the fees, but not the film fees. Did it include film fees?
Oh, I thought she called 13. Oh, I am.
Oh, it does say.
Okay.
Amended.
I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought we were doing the fee ordinance 2025-13.
13, it does say as amended April 1st, so it looks like it has been amended as of today.
Right, so this is the fee ordinance that we're.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And you said there are changes with the film fees?
Yes, so the only changes are with the film fees, which are on, it's in the, I apologize.
See, page
It's under-
18
it's
of
under the pub-
26?
Yeah, it's not, exactly. It's under the Public Works section, and we added in filming permit fees, just drawing it out more specifically on the different types of fees. It was not spelled out clearly in the previous version. The other change is on police camera. Indiana statute, and that's actually a big change for us because Indiana statute allows you to charge up to $150 when people request body cam fees. We didn't have an ordinance on that, so we were still just charging under the Access to Public Records Act, which is almost nothing. So now this is updated to allow us to charge $150 when people do request body cam fees. And that's substantial because the police department puts a lot of time. We have to review those. We have to redact any private information. After the police department does it, they send it to the law department. We review those same things. Oftentimes these are 3-hour videos. So we put a lot of time in that, and that will now be money that we're not losing. We'll be getting $150 every time someone requests that. Those are the two major changes.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I'll entertain a motion to amend by substitution CPO 2025-13. Moved by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Sounds like it's been seconded by Councilman Halliburton and Councilman Whittington. Roll call, Madam Clerk. And this is on the amendment.
Councilwoman Brown? Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Halliburton?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver?
Yes.
Councilman Washington?
Yes.
Councilman Winston?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
And President Latham?
Yes.
Madam President, the vote is 9-0.
Thank you. With the vote of 9-0, CPO 2025-13 has been amended. Need a motion? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to pass.
So moved.
CPO 2025-13. It's been moved and properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Halliburton?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver?
Yes.
Councilman Washington?
Yes.
Councilman Winston?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
President Latham?
Yes.
Madam President, the vote is 9-0.
With the vote of 9-0, CPO 2025-13 is passed and is so ordered.
CPO 2025-14, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit to allow for a short-term rental property at 6110 Ash Avenue, Gary, Indiana, by petitioner Anthony C. Payan and Melissa Payan, sponsored by the Gary Zoning Department. Petitioner Anthony C. and Melissa P. Payan, 6110 Ash Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-14? It's been moved by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Dwight Williams. Overview? Thank you, Attorney Molina.
Good evening, council members. 2025-14 is a special use permit for a short-term rental located at 6110 Ash Avenue. Pursuant to our ordinance, short-term rentals are divided into whether it's owner-occupied or non-owner occupied. Owner-occupied automatically, per statute, has the right to use it as a short-term rental. If it's non-owner occupied, then a short-term, a special use permit is required. The petitioners filed this, and this was heard and held at a public hearing in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals on February 13, 2025. There was 2 remonstrators. I believe Ms. Gibson King, who was here again today, was one of them. At that time, the concern was whether there was police activity. The police department did put together a report for us about all police activity in the area. And I believe you were provided that at the committee hearing, but I don't know if you did not. We can get you copies of that. But as you know, when a short-term rental, or I'm sorry, when a special use permit is being sought, There are certain factors that have to be met. There are specifically 7 factors. Those factors include that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. 2, that the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. 3, that the establishment of a special use will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. 4, that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. 5, that adequate measures have been taken or will be taken to provide for access management, ingress, and egress, so designed as to minimize traffic congestion on the public roads. 6, that the special use will be located in a district where such use is authorized, and all other requirements set forth in the chapter which are applicable to such special use will be met. And then finally, that the petitioner did document and present to the board that proposed special use provides for the implementation of sustainable growth principles and initiatives as approved by the board. At the public hearing on February 13th, the BZA voted and they ended deadlock 2 and 2. In order for it to be passed with a favorable recommendation, they would have required 3 votes. There was only 4 members present. So it is passed to you without a favorable recommendation for your review. And I don't know if you have any other questions. I'm certainly happy to answer those.
Thank you, Attorney Molina. Colleagues, any questions or discussion?
Quick question.
Councilman Whittington.
Thank you, Madam President. Correct me if I'm wrong. We allow for 6 vehicles, correct? Outside of these properties? This one in particular?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I mean, they have to abide by whatever zoning ordinances are for the residential area.
I just want to do a double check. I want to say in the planning commission, we had a conversation somewhere around 6 vehicles. I'm not in favor of that. But that was all. Thank you.
And along those lines, Mr. Whittington, and in those 7 factors, I mean, one of them is essentially that it's going to go along with the uses in the area. And so if they were outside of the ordinance, then certainly it would be cited just like any other property.
Colleagues, any other comments or questions? Attorney Molina, I'm wondering, did the 2 members of the Planning Commission, did they give any reason why they did not vote in the affirmative?
The 2 members were Mr. Cook and Mr. Fawcett. They did not. There was some concern about a pool being removed, and that actually, and I neglected to mention that was part of the. If this were to be passed, there is a special condition in here that they remove the pool that was in the back. Apparently, that was unsightly. But other than having some concerns about the pool, although that condition is met with the ordinance as written, there was not a clear explanation of what their issue was exactly.
Councilman Whittington?
I'm so sorry, Madam President. So they'll only clean up the place if we pass it? I may be ignorant, and I watch too much TV, but that's what it sounded like to me.
No, actually, they said they would take care of it at the time, but to hold their feet to the fire, the BZA said, if this were to be passed, we'd recommend that you have this condition so that if they didn't, then it's conditioned on that.
All right, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
And you mentioned 2 remonstrators, if I'm saying that right.
Yes.
Does that include Ms. King, who showed up tonight?
Yes.
2 additional?
No, it's her, and there was another individual. Name escapes me, but she came with Miss Gibson King. They were together. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other colleagues? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
No.
Councilman Halliburton?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Pass.
Councilman Tolliver?
No.
Councilman Washington?
No.
Councilman Whittington?
No.
Councilman Williams?
No.
Councilwoman Ivy?
Abstain.
President Latham?
No. Councilwoman? Sure.
So can I have it repeated, please?
Madam Clerk? You vote?
She voted yes.
Yeah, I need to know what the ordinance was? if
This
you-
one was for a special use permit to allow for a short-term rental at 6110 Ash Avenue.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay,
petitioners were the
I'm sorry,
parents.
I'd like to change my vote to no.
No?
Madam President, the vote is 1 yes, 7 noes, and 1 abstention.
With the vote of 1 yes, 7 noes, and 1 abstention, CPO 2025-14 fails. Thank you.
CPO 2025-15, an ordinance approving salaries and operating budgets for the City of Gary's Parks Construction Fund for Jewel Parks and Health Department opioid settlement restricted fund for calendar year 2025. Sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-15?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Williams, for the motion.
Second.
Oh, or was that Whittington? We have all the deep voices on this side of the room. I missed it. Councilman Williams and Whittington motion. That was Councilwoman Brown with the second.
Right.
An overview, I'm assuming Controller Green.
Thank you, Madam President. We have two budgets. One is for special revenues, and one is also for grants. One is being amended from the original budget that was passed, and one is a new budget. So the new budget is for the Health Department for the Jewel Parks. In Ordinance 9660, appropriations were funded for the Parks Department for renovations of Jewel Parks for 2024. And adjustments are required to the budget line items for appropriations to align with the 2025 expenses. So attached is the operating budget. The operating budget consists of $5,000 in other materials, $430,000 in other services, $300,529.91 in capital outlay, for a total of $755,559.91. Attached also is the projected revenue, and we will be transferring from the general fund to the park construction fund $1,220,184. And this is money that was originally appropriated under the general fund, but when we changed the fund to a multi-year so that our appropriations will continue to roll over, the general fund will be paying the money that was originally allotted under the general fund of $1.2 million. Also, there's a cash rollover of $156,616. So the total cash that will be available for this budget is $1,376,799.81. That will cover the budget that is attached that we're requesting to be approved for the $755,559.91 plus $600,000 in purchase orders that have rolled over. Additionally, we have resubmitted the opioid settlement restricted fund. It was originally passed in 2024 for 25. The Health Department is requesting to establish a salary budget. The salary budget includes a project manager for $70,000. In addition to that, professional services of $175,000, and these were already previously approved, $5,000 in printing, $25,000 in advertisement, $5,000 in carrying charges for a total of $210,000 for services, $15,921 for other building, a total of $339,166. For the revenue projection, a grant revenue will be received of $423,877. Cash rolled over from last year of $766,860, a total of $1,190,737 will be available for this budget of $339,166. And both department heads are present for any questions that you may have about the budgets.
Thank you, Controller Green. Colleagues, any questions or discussion?
I don't have a.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell?
I have been opposed to the opioid and project manager position the whole time, so I'm going to have to vote no for this because it's a part of this. When we take it out, I'll vote yes for parks. If not, I have to vote no. Thank you.
Did Ms. Ellis want to come and address it's the project manager position that's a problem. Thank you for being here, Ms. Ellis.
Oh, no problem. Good evening. My name is Veronica Collins Ellis. I'm the Executive Director of the Gary Health Department. The Behavioral Health Project Manager roles and responsibility will be to oversee the mental health and the addiction services program under the Health Department. This person also will be we have given out grants to these organizations, and this person will be there to oversee the project for every year that they're receiving grants. Yeah.
Any other questions, colleagues?
And this person is a licensed social worker.
And
Will be a
I'm
licensed
sure I've
social
asked you
worker.
this before, but this is a new position, right? You're hiring someone who does not currently work for the health department.
Correct.
In this position.
Correct.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Yeah.
All right, Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
And we're in the process of laying people off, correct?
Correct, but this is a settlement that we received for 16 years. No, it's only have certain guidelines.
Most of the work that person will be doing is the same thing that Edgewater is doing.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Thank you, Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Caldwell.
No.
Councilman Halliburton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver.
Yes.
Councilman Washington.
Yes.
Councilman Winston.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, vote is 8 yes, 1 no.
With a vote of 8 yes and 1 no, CPO 2025-15 passes and is so ordered.
CPO 2025-16, an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 2762 West 18th Avenue and 1502 through 16 Marshall, Gary, Indiana, to be used as a recreational building with medical offices, sponsored by Mayor Eddie Melton, City of Gary, petitioners DVG Team, 1155 Troutwine Road, Crown Point, Indiana.
Colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-16?
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly moved by Councilman Whittington, seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Overview? Thank you, Attorney Molina.
Good evening again, council members. This CPO 2025-16 is an ordinance reviewing a special use permit for property located at 2762 West 18th Avenue and 1502 to 16 Marshall, Gary, to be used as a recreational building with medical offices. This is the YMCA project. It is in a residential area that ranges from R2 to R5 zoning. And this type of use is allowable only with a special use permit, which we would have to, again, prove the same 7 factors that we discussed previously. This matter came before the Board of Zoning Appeals in its February meeting. There was a unanimous vote to favorably recommend a special use permit be granted for the purposes. And again, the 7 factors are that the establishment and maintenance or operation of the special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. The establishment of the special use will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. Number 5, the adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide for access management, ingress and egress, so designed as to minimize traffic congestion on the public roads. 6, that the special use will be located in a district where such use is authorized, and all the other requirements set forth in the chapter which are applicable to the special use will be met. And then finally, that the petitioner did document and present to the board the proposed special use provides for the implementation of sustainable growth principles and initiatives as approved by the board. Again, when it was presented, it was unanimously approved. There was just a couple parties speaking. Mr. I forget your name. Curry. Mr. Curry was one of those. He just wanted to know what was going on with the project. There was no one in opposition to the plan, and so the administration does support this. And that's a summary of the ordinance. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns, comments, colleagues? Councilman Tolliver.
I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the city of Gary. Man, it just feels good to have a youth center in the city, you know, where our children can thrive and be able to utilize a lot of things. And just to see that track behind Tolliston to be redone again, man, it's a great day in Gary. I just hope that with that project that you all are making sure that we get the right people in that building to make sure that we take care of that building, and we get Gary citizens in there to work. And if we need to get them prepared, whether it's training or whatever, let's make sure we get our own in that building so we can have a sense of pride in that building, because, man, it just feels good to know that our citizens don't have to go to Portage, Valparaiso, and everywhere else, and they have a building that they can utilize. So I'm all for it, and I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tolliver. Any other questions, comments? Councilwoman Brown.
Or, am I in the wrong?
No, it's on.
Yeah, because I've had a lot of people who live in that area who have said the same thing that Councilman Tolliver just mentioned. We have to travel so far in order to get any kinds of services. So I too am very happy that this is going to be located near the area where we live, in my district. Yes.
The mighty 3rd District. Thank you,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown. Any other questions or comments, colleagues? Hearing, seeing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Halliburton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy.
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver.
Yes.
Councilman Washington.
Yes.
Councilman Wessington.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Yes.
President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, vote is 9-0.
With the unanimous vote of 9 yeas and 0 noes, CPO 2025-16 is passed and is so ordered.
CPO 2025-17, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana, to establish the 23rd and Grant Commerce Center, PUD, sponsored by PUD, sponsored by Zoning Department. Petitioner Kyle Glascott, 2156 North Halsted, Chicago, Illinois.
Colleagues, is there a motion to pass CPO 2025-17? It's been moved by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell, seconded by Councilman Washington. Overview. Who is doing the overview? Attorney Molina? And I understand we have is the presentation happening tonight?
Do we want them to do the presentation first?
We'll let Attorney Molina do the overview, and then the petitioners have a presentation.
Good evening again, council members. CPO 2025-17, ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123, entitled Land Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana, to establish the 23rd and Grant Commerce Center, PUD. This matter came before the Planning Commission on February 20th, 2025. I will note that we submitted an amended version today because I had a typo on the date of that meeting. There was a public hearing on February 20th, and I had improperly listed that date in the ordinance. So it did come in front of the Plan Commission. At that time, the Plan Commission voted unanimously against the PUD. The reasoning for that was essentially based off of staff recommendation. And I can have Ms. Sharp further detail to you what her recommendation was to the Plan Commission. So she can come up and do that in a moment. But if there's any other questions, certainly she's available and I'm available. And then obviously petitioners have their presentation to further give you background on this project.
Welcome, Ms. Sharp.
Good evening, councilors. Corey Sharp with the Planning and Zoning Department. Prior to getting started, I wanted to share with you that the Plan Commission is embarking on a comprehensive plan update this year with a specific focus on what the land use should be for all vacant school properties across Gary. So the Plan Commission reviewed and evaluated a PUD, and a PUD stands for Planned Unit Development Code. It basically replaces and provides a new written custom code for a specific project solely on that site. So that's what you are contemplating tonight. And this project is for repurposing this Beckman School site. After thoughtful consideration of the petitioner's proposed written code to establish a light industrial, wholesale, and distribution facility, among other land uses that are in their proposal, it is not a truck stop. Okay, this proposal is not a truck stop. The Plan Commission is bringing you an unfavorable recommendation. As you consider their recommendation, there were 5 points of concern that they evaluated. Those are detailed in my written report, but as a quick highlight, those 5 points of concern were: 1, the immediate proximity to single family; 2, each PUD should establish an underlying zoning district that if it's not going to address all of the specifics of the Gary zoning code, and this PUD does not have an underlying zoning district. So it doesn't tackle things like sound levels, odor nuisance, explosives, maximum floor area ratio. The building height, this is the third point, the building height maximum in their written proposal is 50 foot with an additional 25 foot for accessory units on top of the roof. So this is incongruent with the neighborhood height character. The petitioner is proposing a single structure under 5.3 acres of roof, also thinking about the neighborhood fabric from that standpoint. And then the front, side, and rear yards are referenced in the proposed PUD, but there's no outline for required depth for each of those things due to the lack of the reference of the underlying zoning district that I mentioned. As written, the PUD language is uncharacteristic to the surrounding area, which is why the Plan Commission is bringing you an unfavorable recommendation for your consideration. And I believe that you all have been provided the petitioner's presentation and then also the recommendations that were presented in front of the Plan Commission. Happy to take any questions as we go along. Thank you.
Any questions, comments, Councilman Whittington?
How's it going, Ms. Sharp? What were your recommendations?
My staff recommendation was unfavorable to the Plan Commission.
To the Plan Commission, I understand unfavorable. In your level of expertise, you have an impressive resume.
I have a what?
You have an impressive resume. I've seen the scope of work you've done. I used to live in Indianapolis, so I've definitely seen your work. If you were to make this work, what would that look like? If you had an idea of what to put in that place, with your level of expertise, I'm just curious.
Yeah. If we were to continue to consider this petition, I would definitely want to address those 5 points. For instance, limiting traffic. There's 2 sides to their property. One is for trunk entrances, and one is for their employees to park. So I would want to address specifically where those would be located. Looking at the architectural character, this is a light industrial building, and typically that is a precast concrete facility, which means a straight line across the front. So single-family residential neighborhoods have lots of great character, and as does this neighborhood. So looking towards just some depth and undulation in the architectural character. Also looking at adding some specifics to those nuisance type things put into the ordinance. In evaluating the proposal, I think the highest structure in the area is 35 feet. And so having a 50-foot building with 25 foot on top, that's 75 feet. So thinking about limiting that height certainly would be a plus. And then I know that this is one business under one roof, but in each zoning code that we contemplate, we evaluate what planned unit developments are. There's actually a section in the code that says, what do planned unit developments have to hit? And it talks about spacing between principal buildings shall have at least equivalent spacing, and it talks about multiple buildings. So there's kind of this language that leads you towards breaking up the space, so it's not this huge mass. And then, of course, having the capability to regulate front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks certainly would go a long way towards making this a proposal that could be considered.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's just for everyone in the room as well, we appreciate your level of expertise. Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam President,
Councilman Washington.
I didn't get a chance to see the presentation, so I want to see the presentation, but then I got some more questions for Ms. Sharp and then also for the potential developer, but I think we need to allow them to show the public the presentation. So Ms. Sharp, could you stand by? So I got a lot of questions for you and for the developer.
Thank you, Councilman Washington. Media team, do you have the presentation loaded?
Yes, we do.
All right, and on behalf of the petitioner, who's giving the presentation? Welcome, Attorney Weezer.
Thank you, Madam President. I will be introducing the individual who's qualified to give the presentation. I just, a couple of quick comments, if I could. When this started out, this saga began, I was just sitting here and I was observing, and unless my count is incorrect, there were only 3 members that sit on this body right now that were on this body when we started. So there's 6 new members. I know that because I conducted all the caucuses. And so part of what and this is no reflection on the staff. I think right now you have an outstanding planning staff. And in the years I've worked with the city, it's the best. But we've been through and dealt with a number of individuals over 3 years. When we would come in front of one group, they would say, this is what we'd like you to do. And then when we come in from another group, they'd say, this is what we think you should do. And so it's been a struggle, and it's just the way it is. It just happened that way. Administrations change, people change, get all that. And so I understand what Corey's saying relative to some of the specifics that she would, when Councilman Winstonson asked about that, I can understand her response because she's inherited all this and would like to see it more refined and understood. But at the same token, I just want to, I'd like to make it clear that, clients, when I represent clients in Gary, they come to Gary because they believe Gary's a good place to develop. We all have differences. I get it. I won't agree with Doreen Carey very often. She won't agree with me. But that doesn't make us right or wrong. That just says we have a different approach to development. That's all that it is. And it's our belief that a development of this nature would benefit the community. And it's kind of interesting. And we were in front of the zoning committee last week. And one thing I always do is keep score. I keep score, and last week, the vast majority of the people who appeared before the zoning committee supported the project. We're here tonight before the council, and the majority of the people who stood up were opposed to the project. That shows the difference in the community, and the community feels that, or expresses themselves the same way we do. We have differences of opinion. Everybody wants Gary to succeed. That's unequivocal. That's unequivocal. Everybody wants this community to succeed. It doesn't help me living in Schererville if Gary doesn't succeed. It doesn't help other people that live in other communities if Gary doesn't succeed. It's the largest city, I think, by landmass in the state, I think, and it needs to succeed. It's how should we do it? We think that the presentation that you're about to see is an indication and a good beginning as to how to get that done. Not that everything should be done, but when schools are abandoned for 20 or 21 years with very little prospect of having them improved, something has to be done. And that's what we felt. We felt that in good faith. I then would, and having said that, I'd have our expert who's qualified to do this stuff, Carl Heitman, to make the presentation. Thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you, Attorney Weiser. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Thank you, Mr. Weiser. My name's Carl Heitman. I'm president, founder of Heitman Architects. We're at 555 Pierce Road in Itasca, Illinois. I'm an architect and a planner, and never wanted to be an industrial architect, but I found myself being one. I've been in the market in the Greater Chicagoland district for over 33 years, and we do a lot of industrial buildings. A lot of industrial buildings that are mixed-use, office, assembly, light manufacturing, and more recently we're doing some really nice, innovative, advanced manufacturing. Stand before a committee like this, especially in a community that cares so much. We've been through a lot of hearings, as Mr. Weiser talked about, and we heard a lot of positive statements last Thursday. We're hearing a lot of concerns, and we know everybody cares about, this site and the community. The one thing I heard last week, which I'd want to reiterate, is Gary, Indiana is golden, and we believe that. Gary, Indiana is the center of the country, and we understand that being the center of the country, you're at the center of the railroads, the highways, air traffic, and what's put in ocean with the sea. And what put Gary on the map was that geographic location, and what made Gary so important in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, steel industry, the automotive. It's key to those industries that are coming back. There's a time and place for things. I know we're in a really depressed economy, or we have been. A lot of our manufacturing had been sent offshore, but we're at a really golden opportunity right now because manufacturing is coming back, and it's coming back for several reasons, one of which, the pandemic, we found our supply chain was vulnerable, and we found that all the manufacturing that supported the automotive industry, housing industry, mining industry, just about anything we make in America was being sourced from overseas. And that's turning around. I work for a lot of companies that are in the Chicago area and Illinois, and we do a lot of work in Indiana as well. Companies from Switzerland, Austria, Singapore. I've got a project manufacturer of medical supplies from Singapore we're working on. Japan. A lot of these manufacturers, suppliers of the products we all use are coming to America because they want to be close to their consumer. What's happening in the market is producers are becoming close to consumers. And we need to see how Gary can take advantage of that, because you're ideally located and all that economy can come back. But we have to be open-eyed to that opportunity, and we have to seize those opportunities. It's really tough to think about change, but 23rd and Grand Commerce Center is a potential site for that to start. The building we've designed is what I'd call an incubator building. It is not a truck terminal. It's a building that will support offices and different uses. We have not found that use yet because we don't have the underlying zoning that's required to get that use here. These companies that are coming in from different parts of the country or overseas, they want to really make sure that there's opportunity. It's not discretionary. They need to know that they've got a site here that's zoned that will bring that growth. So go to the next slide, please. We're requesting a rezone from R2 to PUD. We look forward to working with Ms. Sharp. I think she's a real asset to the community. We've had discussions with Ms. Sharp. We are going to rewrite our application to have M1 zoning as an overlay. And we intend, and the project actually conforms with M1 zoning. So that'd be the overlying zoning for this PUD. I represent Indiana Investment Properties, Mr. Kyle Glascott and Ms. Christina Primbus. I know their interests are genuine, and I know they've been in this area for over, 5 years or more? 10 years. So they've got an investment in the community, and they don't want to see this project fail, and they don't want to destroy a neighborhood fabric that's been established. Next slide. So overall in this presentation, we're going to talk about the location and context of the specific site, the basis for rezone request. We'll talk about community value. We've got development plans that aren't soft, they're pretty hard. And through this PUD process, I think we can go through an architectural review process along with site planning review so that you know what you're getting. There's no discretion. We're going to build what we say we're going to build. We'll talk about evaluation criteria, and then we've got some summary slides that I think may not be important today, but they're there. So next slide. So this is a comprehensive plan for Gary, and what you see between I-90 and I-94 is a dedicated truck route, which is Grant Road. Next slide. Grant Road actually connects the two districts that are heavy industrial. It would be near the lake, that's Star, and down south would be a second Star. And Grant Road actually is strategically connecting the two. Grant Street as a dedicated truck route. If we see a network of industry coming back to Gary, we're going to look to see networks of buildings that support that growth, and that starts with incubator buildings. Next slide. Currently, the conditions of the site has been, I think, vacant for over 20 years, and I think it is a detriment to the neighborhood, and we have an investment group that wants to come in and really raise the building, clean up the environmental, and create an asset on that site. It all should be positive. Next slide. Regional economic drivers, which we discussed already, as the opportunity to develop this underdeveloped property, vacant property, into a performing asset. Can become an employee base with increased jobs for Gary, increased tax base, and that supports future housing. If you don't have jobs, you can't buy a house. We heard that loud and clear last week from a lot of the comments we heard. The regional market demand I talked about, I see that coming to this area, and I think the communities that support that will succeed, and you don't want to be bypassed. This could be a catalyst to ignite this redevelopment. Next slide, please. This is a slide that's on the cover of my website. It's we design buildings at work is our tag. The building on the slide is a building for Sunstar, which is a Japanese company. They make toothbrushes and soft picks, gum brand products. The building has a clean room and it's manufacturing as well as distribution and office, similar to the uses we're planning. But to tell you, industrial is not a dirty word anymore. This building is very clean. In fact, it's a clean room with 100,000 rated clean rooms. The employees are cleaner in the factory than they are in the lunchroom. In fact, they have to sanitize themselves when they go back into the factory. It's so clean. It's not generated by boilers and fossil fuels. It's all electric, 100% electric. Has solar panels on the roof that powers it. Most of the buildings we're doing are 100% solar, and they're 100% this energy is 100% supplied by solar on the roof. Next slide. This is a project we completed just over the border in Illinois. It's a facility for Method soap. Method soap is one of the most sustainable soap products in the world, and they decided to manufacture their product in the Pullman district. Our client, Adam Lowry from San Francisco, grew up in Detroit. He hired us to look for sites. He wanted to redevelop a site that brought jobs back to the community. He grew up in Detroit. We were looking in Detroit and Chicago South Side. He picked Chicago South Side. We built this building. It's powered by that 600 kVA windmill. It's got solar trees. And it's the first LEED Platinum building in the world. Our firm was awarded the Cornet Global Sustainable Leadership Award for this project. That's a global award for sustainability. We're very proud of this building. Adam redeveloped a site that was a former steel plant. It was dirty. We'd clean it up, and it had 10-foot high razor wire around it. And Adam said, we'll build this building without fences. This building will never have a fence. So we took down the fences, we restored the wetlands, and he hired 400 people from the neighborhood. All the jobs came out of the neighborhood, and it has such a culture you wouldn't believe. They really love their job. They love their firm they work for. Every morning they have calisthenics before they go into work. It's a building that is nationally recognized or world recognized for sustainability. There are tours there every Friday. And the docents for the tour are every one of the employees. So what they set up was an employee docent plan where every week somebody within the company, from the guy that is a janitor to the guy that sits in the corner office, takes their turn to give tours to the public through the building. The other unique thing that happens there is everybody in that company takes their turn being the receptionist, from the guy in the corner to the guy in the that's a janitor. Everybody's proud of the building, and it's got that kind of a culture, and only because it came out of the city. So it's this building meets the triple bottom line, and in the commercial real estate industry, triple bottom line means it meets the environmental challenges, the economic challenges, and the social challenges. So this project embodied that, and that's why it was globally recognized, and it's in the Pullman district. Next slide.
Madam President,
Councilwoman Ivy?
I cannot hear the presentation because of chatter in the audience. I really do appreciate each and every public comment, and the people that are here to present allow each and every one of you to express your concerns to the depth without interruption. Please allow me to hear what this gentleman is saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ivy.
Thank you. If we go back to the slide presentation. So this is a rendering of the building we're proposing. It's the building that we'd get approved through an architectural and site plan approval process through the PUD. It won't change, and this building will not exceed 50 foot in height. That language that was in the earlier proposal can be strucken because I don't think we need any higher of a building. If we have mechanical equipment, which we probably will, that mechanical equipment will be at least 40 foot away from the perimeter, and it will be properly screened if it's seen. We look at sightline studies to make sure we're not looking at equipment on the roof. If this is a successful building, we'll have equipment on the roof. A lot of these buildings are air-conditioned, fully air-conditioned. They have maybe some fans or other kinds of equipment on the roof that supports the businesses within. This building is precast concrete, as Ms. Sharp had mentioned, but it is not a flat facade. We have stone facades at entryways. We have that dark brown is a phenolic panel, which looks like wood grain, and we have a timber canopy at the entries. We have large glass walls that you see on the end of the building, plus ribbon windows where the offices would be. So this is a long building, and it's broken up. The facade is broken up, I think, very architecturally, and it's scaled to the residents. This building is about, 140 feet? 100. It's on the plan. It's 142 feet, the face of the building to the property line. Then there's a 66-foot right-of-way, and then there's 20-foot setback on the other side. So we are far exceeding the setback required for the building front yard. We do have 260 cars in the front. So as was mentioned, there's some trucks in the back, but we wouldn't be putting 260 cars in the front if we didn't expect that kind of population in the building. We don't know who's going to occupy the building, but it might be between 50 to 250 people within the building. And that's why the parking is there. The parking is separated by this from the street with a green belt, which has an undulating line of berms and plantings and wrought iron fencing. Next slide, please. So this is the basis for rezone application. It's a PUD. We're looking at local business uses, office distribution, maybe advanced manufacturing or light assembly. But as mentioned by Ms. Corey, this is not a cross-dock truck facility. This is not a truck yard. They wouldn't go here. They don't have the supporting infrastructure, the roads, and the building's just not set up for that. The building's a single-loaded building with a front, an office front. So it just would not accommodate anything else. Steps, we need to get this site plan and the text amendment approved in our building elevations in this PUD process, which would then allow the proper zoning for us to connect to those businesses that want to come to Gary. And I think there are a lot of people that want to come to Gary. It's consistent with the 2019 comprehensive plan and your code requirements. I know that is in flux, but we'd be happy to work with Ms. Sharp to do our part, to be a part of that plan moving forward. The city remains in control. You will have the approval process for the details, crossing the T's and dotting the I's as we go forward. And we need to get that path open to connect to that developer and user. Next slide. This is a plan of the site. As you can see, the building looks rather large, but the way the height of the building is and the way the facades are articulated, it will be broken up, and I think it will be more of a residential scale. The parking you see is to the bottom of the page, which is south. To the top of the page, you see the docks are against that north wall. There's a detention pond on the far north of that panhandle, and there's storage, outdoor storage per M1 zoning in the section between the pond and the building. As you can see, 23rd's at the bottom of the page. There's a stoplight, and 23rd will be the main artery for the residential area. There will be no trucks allowed on that. There are no trucks. There's no truck entry into the building or area. It's strictly cars. We put the cars next to where the residences are. On the street to the north is at 22nd. That's where the trucks enter. They enter and exit that same entrance. They will not go anywhere other than that stretch of 22nd. Next slide, please. This is I guess a close-up detail of, you can see the trucks on 22nd going in and out of the same curb cut. So these buildings are all about security, and they usually want to control any truck access through a gate, and that's where the gate would be. It's probably a electronic arm with a video, but any trucks entering and exiting the site has to go through that point. The roadways on the east and west are strictly there for emergency vehicles. It would probably have a gate, which would be with a knock box or a knockdown gate for emergency vehicles should they have to circle the building. But no vehicles would be allowed on either the east or the west side of the buildings. So trucks are really zoned for the north, and all the automobiles and pedestrians are on the south. And that's in the plan, and it won't be deviated from. Next slide. So this plan shows you that same detail below, but above we're showing a plan of the building and an elevation, and you can see that the building plan above has 6 boxes identified. So when we call this an incubator building or a small business building, it supports small businesses. So the number of docks in the back would be split up between multiple tenants. Now, we don't know how it's going to tenantize, but that's why this building is important, because it's flexible, because we could find a tenant that takes the entire building or half of the building or 3/4 of the building or 1/6 of the building as it's set up. So you see the salmon colors would be where the offices are located, and in the elevation below you'll see how that facade is broken with entries for supporting those 6 tenants. Next slide. That's a more close-up view of that facade. So you can see there's stone features, 4 of them across that south elevation. And those dark brown features would be phenolic panels that look like wood. And you see the canopies are set up that give cover over the office glass. So it's really a facade that's more than what it has to be. And we designed that facade to be sympathetic with the neighborhood. Next slide. So we exceed M1 zoning requirements, this is what's showing. We exceed the minimum front yard, side yards, rear yards. Our open space is greater than minimum, and our loading berths are more than 100 feet from any adjacent residential district. So in those bullets, we exceed the M1 zoning. Additional PUD provisions. Talked about maximum building height. I think we're going to need to have a 38-foot clear under structure inside the building, and we have a 1/4 inch per foot slope on the roof, which means the roofs are sloping towards the perimeter, and we need that additional rise. I think the building would be probably 48 foot, somewhere in that range. But until we do the production drawings, we want to at least have a 50-foot minimum. Anything above that would be equipment that the roof supports. And again, that equipment will be moved at least 40 foot away from the perimeter. And we will look at the sight lines from 23rd. And if that is seen, we'll screen it. This is a conceptual rendering of the building from the air with the roof off. So you can kind of see how the facade and the interior works. The east and west facades will also be treated with phenolic panels, as you see on the end. And you're seeing clear story windows, which bring in natural daylight to the interior. So most of all our clients these days are looking for natural light. They're looking for environments that support productivity for their employees. It's all about the wellness and satisfaction of the employees, otherwise they can't keep them. So a lot of our buildings today are really addressing the needs of the employees with natural daylight, both in views and just ambient light. You can see on the street frontage, you'll see clumps of trees. We've actually placed those trees to align with the alleys and the streets in the neighborhood. So as you look down the street, you're going to see a clump of trees with a solid fence behind it. Between those trees, we have land that we're dedicating back to the neighborhood, which could be used for gardens or play areas or seating, but we're really giving back to the community a piece of that frontage in between those clumps of trees. Next slide. Again, that's the facade up close. We have these detailed drawings in your packet, so as Ms. Sharp has asked, we're going to have architectural review of this plan and approval of this plan along with the site plan so that there won't be any deviation from this as we move forward. Next slide. This is showing you in detail the undulating landscape treatment along 23rd. And we're really trying to create jobs and support local economy with this building. Again, that's 262 cars in front. So we hope to see that parking lot filled. Next slide. This is a view, early on view of what those clump trees would look like down the streets and also the alleyways. In between, this was early rendering, but we looked at some sort of community involvement to see how the community wanted to treat those open spaces. This was community art that would be dedicated to each block, and maybe we talked about a garden, food production or something that might be dedicated to each neighborhood street. That was the concept. Next slide. So our request is to set up appropriate zoning through the PUD that would allow for us to bring in the businesses into Gary or from within Gary and make this a kindle the kind of redevelopment, rebirth of Gary. It's coming. I know it's coming. We see all these manufacturers coming in from around. Other things I haven't mentioned is there's pent-up demand. We've had interest rates that were high, and developers could not build buildings financially. Interest rates are coming down, and that allows them to finance these buildings. That's happening. The tariffs that may be coming in place are actually going to help this because manufacturers have to come into the U.S. to produce the products to supply our consumer habits. And again, sustainability means that they're bringing the producer close to the consumer, and that shortens the supply chain, and it is a very sustainable notion. You're eliminating all the transportation cost and all the time it takes a product to get to a consumer. So I know it's tough. It's tough for me to stand here and hear all the concerns that we've heard tonight. It was rather a different picture on Thursday night, but I know it's a very hard decision because it's going to affect the community. Now, that property has been sitting for 20 years, and we have an opportunity to turn it around. We've got a developer that wants to come in and invest to build that property, to clean that site up. We hope to, within a year of this decision, we hope to have the environmental cleaned up. We've done environmental tests. There's asbestos throughout that school. We have to get the asbestos out before we can take the building down. And we think that that can happen within the next year. And we hope to be running our permit drawings while that's happening. And we look forward, if the environmental gets cleaned up, to have a construction start in the spring of 6. And given we got that construction start in the spring of 26, we hope it to be operational by the first quarter of 2027. So that's our hope. We hope that you would support that. And I know it's a risk to have change, but we think this change is good. Another thing I'd say is we're building a lot of buildings within communities. The live, work, play issue that you've probably heard about is how do you get your workplace and your home together. That's happening all over the country. It's happening all over in the parks and communities we're working in. This is not different than that. So hopefully you'll consider our petition, and we're available for questions.
Madam Chair,
Councilman
I
Washington.
have one question because I want my colleagues to be able to ask whatever they need to ask. So you're telling us before the end, or at least a year after approval, you will, after you get the asbestos out, you look to have that site demolition within a year?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I reserve my questions for later. I want to get colleagues, Madam President, a chance to ask questions.
Thank you, Councilman Washington. Any other colleagues' questions? Councilman Wissington.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm not gonna lie, this is difficult because the reality is I was born in '94 in the city of Gary, and I heard stories of my grandmother telling me about how beautiful Gary was. When I was born, Etna was the murder capital of the world, so I'm blessed to even made it out. The reality is I want development to happen in this city. I really do. It's heartbreaking. I go to St. Timothy, so I pass by here all the time. And no, I don't want semi-trucks right there, but 25th is already littered with semi-trucks, and I see it's a 3-block difference. I don't, and I say this respectfully, I believe in you, but I think I'm having a hard time believing the developers. Man, this is tough. I want this to happen, I really do. But in order for it to happen, I do not feel comfortable voting on this today. I would prefer going back to committee and getting guarantees. Yes, you cannot get lease agreements because you cannot get the financing because we have not designated PUD, but you can get letters of support. You can get letters of intent. You can show me a book of business you have done. You can show me who you work with. And the reality is I've heard conversations over clients you had that went to other cities. That ain't doing it for me. I want this to go through. I want your idea to go through. I actually believe in the projects you've done. But did they do any of those projects that you showed us today? I'm just curious. And if that answer is no, then it's a no for me.
Was that a question?
Yes, the buildings that you showed us today, did they have any input in those buildings? Your clients?
Oh, yes, they have. There's input that clients will give.
No. Not the individuals you have with you today, sir.
Oh, absolutely.
What input did they have in those renderings that you showed us today?
Well, we're looking at a total yield for the property, so we have to make sure that the building supports a pro forma that can be financially feasible.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking from the renderings you showed today, did they initiate any of those buildings? Were they a part of any of those contracts, or were those other partners that you have?
Oh, no, the other projects they weren't a part of.
That was my question.
Yes, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I have faith in you.
Yeah.
I have faith in your work. So I guess man, I hate this. How much is it going to cost for you to let go of the property? Just curious.
How much it costs to?
Not you, the ones who own the property. How much would it cost for you to let it go? What's your cost into it? I'm just.
Madam Chair, you need to come to the mic, and I implore you to watch it. Yes, come on up.
Yeah, I know I
What
put
happened
you on the
last
spot.
time?
I'm just curious. What was your cost into it?
Our costs into it today are probably north of $1 million.
North of $1 million. Okay. All right. What's it appraised at?
It's probably worth $10,000 an acre, maybe, in the current state.
You haven't had it appraised?
By brokers, not professionally appraised, no.
All right. So you're saying right now you're probably taking a hit somewhere north of $450,000.
For sure.
Okay. Gotcha. Which I'm trying to give you the benefit of doubt, which would explain why you didn't invest any money to demolish the property as it stands.
Correct, yeah. No, we can't.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. So far, how much have you spent in taxes by chance?
I believe the taxes are around 15 to 20,000 a year.
15, 20,000 a year. And you had it for how long? 5 years, so $100,000 additional. So you're in a hole $550,000. Okay. So $550,000. If we zone this PUD, I'm estimating per acre to be about $55,000 per acre, if you had to guess. It's just my personal assessment, so I could be wrong.
Sure.
So at that point in time, you would make your money back. And I'm not coming at you. But with that new zoning, you would probably be close to somewhere around break even. What is the say? And I saw the presentation in regards that we can keep you accountable. But I really put this towards my colleagues. What can we do to ensure that if we do want development to occur in this location, how can we remain in control of what it can become?
Well, I think that's the point of the PUD, so that you.
Yeah. After the PUD process, we have to get a building permit.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to approve our building permit.
Yeah.
Then you're going to inspect the site to make sure we've built what we have gotten permitted. So you control the process all the way through. We can't slip a change in on you.
It's ironic you say that. Is like I said, I am from Edna, and not no shade to the city of Gary, but a lot of things get slipped through. That's why I ran for office. So I hear you. Man, financially speaking, I get it. You're trapped. Man, I wish there was a way we could buy it back. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman Wissington. Councilman Tolliver?
Yeah, I can't lie that the presentation is very, very, it's good, right? But the thing is, with me, I'm just worried about my citizens. You know, we're talking about putting something in a residential area. I think that's something that we have to take into account. When I look in other cities, and everybody say, well, other cities aren't Gary. They don't put these type of buildings in residential areas. And I want people to think about that. I want my colleagues to think about that. Because we're talking about our citizens that have been living in these houses for years. And these houses are keepsakes, right? So I just think about my father. When it's time to pass and he gives me that home that I grew up in, right? I would be upset knowing that my boys got to play outside and it's a fulfillment center, as they say, across the street. And I just think that even with this situation and with Councilman Wissington, he's right. It's hard. We want to bring jobs back. We want infrastructure. But at what cost? At what cost do we want it? And what are we telling other people outside of our community? Are we saying that Gary can be bought? They can do whatever they want to do? That's what I have a problem with. And I think that it should go back to committee. We need to fill these gray areas and make sure that we have things to our liking. And it's something that we can honestly believe in, but it's just hard for me to believe in something that's in a residential area that these taxpayers that are paying taxes in our city are saying that they don't want it. Like, we have to take that into account.
I got you.
Our people matter.
Thank you, Councilman Tolliver. Councilwoman Brown?
May I respond to that comment?
Sure.
So, working with Christina and Mr. Glasscott for the last 2 years, I've talked to a lot of people, and I found it very interesting what I've found out. I found out that there are a lot of residents in Gary and East Chicago that are here and remain here because they're happy with their community. And they're on pensions from when they worked with the steel mills. And they're very well set up financially, and they don't want to leave. But their children are leaving, and their grandchildren are leaving because they don't have places to work. Now, if you did go back to that house you grew up in and your children were able to get a job at that facility and stay and live in the community with you, that would be a good thing. So that's one thing I heard from one of the residents.
Thank you,
that
Mr.
I thought was
Heitman.
interesting.
Councilwoman Brown?
Madam President, my concern is this. We here in the city of Gary complain about our taxes being too much because we don't have businesses in the city to take the brunt of some of the taxes that we have to pay. We understand that any services that are provided by the city come from taxpayer dollars. I think it is incumbent upon this council or this person on the council to find or to support those kinds of businesses that will bring revenue into the city to help us to pay those taxes so that we can, we talk about not being able to pay the firemen enough or not being able to pay the policemen enough. We can't pay them enough if we don't get tax revenue. We have got to sit back and say, perhaps we're not sure exactly what this is, but if we do nothing, what do we get? And that's my concern. My concern is if we do nothing, then what do we have? And at this point, we've done nothing for how many years and not collected any tax revenue from them. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Wissington.
Yes, I do piggyback off there, Councilman Tolliver, and this is no disrespect. We do put commercial property in residential areas. We just voted on it on the very last one. So this is why I say this hard, because I love Gary. I really do. In order to love it, sometimes you gotta do some hard things. But I do want to call out hypocrisy, and I'll call out myself. We do commercial development in residential areas. That's what the Y is. We just rezoned 2 parcels that were residential to commercial. So this is why it's conflicting. The reality is we need more income. We need more tax basis. And everyone that says housing can do it, I am so sorry. For a city this big, that's just not true. And respectfully so, it's just not the truth. Residential will not save the city. It's built on commercial layouts. That's what Gary was designed for. So like I said, I really want development to occur, but there has to be a way that we can find out, and I will dedicate whatever time it takes to figure out how to make something of this magnitude work. But as it stands, I am not sold. So I really want to toss this back to committee and really spend some time, talk with some more development. I want to get with the city planner, chief of staff. I want to figure out exactly what direction do we want to head in, and not just over 1 or 2 years. We got to think long term at this point. And I say this respectfully. I love all our citizens, but we're dying slowly. And I mean this respectfully. Me and my wife wanted to come back because we believe in this city. My friends that came from Gary do not come home. We're all taught, and we have been raised by many educators. Just look at my family tree. Get educated, do not come back home. That's why you don't see us. We need something for the next generation. So as I stated, housing is great, and I see the faces. I do. But we do need commercial development. Here, we do. This project, maybe not. But something is going to have to change. And it's going to be painful to some magnitude. So I just want to say, crucify me, don't reelect me, that's fine. But I have to tell the truth. We need something to happen. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Withington.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Gary has seen its day and era of white flight, as well as we're now focused on our youth flight. Our youth don't see a reason to stay here. They view the city, they view the city as a desolate desert with no chance of opportunity. So we can't just keep turning our thumbs, our nose down when we look at something as a possible opportunity for growth. I looked at the project in East Chicago. It's a tall, humongous structure. This project is a different layout. It's more, to me, more feasible to the community. We need tax base. And as Councilman said, you can't get that alone from housing. You got to have some commercial. So I'm gonna leave it at that, but I'm gonna leave it at that. I know how I want to vote, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other questions, concern from council members? Councilman Halliburton?
Madam Chairman, my biggest concern is jobs. That is my main concern about the city of Gary. I've spoken with a council person in Chicago about that structure in Chicago. It's been there 3 years, and there's no more jobs than what it is at this particular time. Where would the jobs come from? That's what we want to know. We understand the structure there. Can you help us out on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Halliburton. Any other questions or concerns from colleagues? I have a few, if not. All right. I did want to know you all's connection to the project in East Chicago. It's been referenced a lot. I'm just curious to know.
Thank you, everyone. I purchased the property. It was heavily contaminated. I had different studies done. My partner, Mr. Gilbert, and I hired a law firm out of Indianapolis. We cleaned up the contamination and made sure we got the certificates that no further action letters. And we hired top-notch real estate companies to take it to the market. So.
I'm sorry, so you owned the property in East Chicago?
Yes, I owned it, and I helped co-develop it with the plans and everything that the real estate company brought in a company, and we sat down and mapped everything out.
And do you currently own the East Chicago property? Okay,
no.
But you owned it before and sold it?
Yes.
And then I'm curious to know the barriers to eliminating our planning commission, our planning director's concerns with the property. Like what kept you all from just sitting down with our planning director or members of the plan commission to work out some of those concerns before coming here?
We sat down 4 years ago, and we worked with the mayor, the planning department. Our attorney was Tony Walker. He passed. After that, I called several times to get appointments to come in and meet with the mayor and everybody. Nobody bothered calling back. So we hired Mr. Weiser, and he worked with Carl and my partner. But all this that was going on, we had Dayton Street Properties wanting to come to do a project. But they waited for 2 years. We have working relationships with realtors that do represent companies that are industrial throughout the United States. So we already had a company to offer jobs and everything, and had the money to put it together. So nothing happened because, like I said, nobody bothered calling us back. I'm text messaging, and I have the messages saying we can't do nothing until the new administration.
Is there anything keeping you, or has there anything been keeping you, like just in the last 30 days, from working with the administration, our planning director, to eliminate some of those concerns that she mentioned?
Well, Madam President, before she answers, I need to add this part because my name is being scrutinized and people are saying things about me that's not true. And I want to remind everybody what happened when I went to the planning committee meeting in February. When I went to the planning committee meeting in February, I spoke and I said that this is a great project. It may not be the right place. So I asked the administration back in February to meet with this team to try to find an alternative location possibly to be able to work something out. So the administration can speak now as to, for the last month, what happened in those negotiations, because what I was told was that alternative sites that were provided was extremely contaminated, and it would have took millions of dollars to be able to renovate those. So I will stand on, yes, I was at that meeting, and I saw that there are some people that spoke against, but then again, I said, listen, this is gonna come to planning and development. Try to find an alternative site, work with this group. And so only the administration tonight can tell you what has happened, because since that meeting, I have not heard from one person from the administration regarding this presentation. So I don't know what's going on with that, but what I will tell you in this council and the public, at that meeting, I requested for this organization to meet with the administration to see what alternative site or what could be spoken about regarding the terms of, you know, the building and specs like that.
Thank you, Councilman Washington.
May I
do,
answer the
well,
question?
first, yes, but first I do just want to acknowledge your diligence with this project and all of the meetings that have taken place.
We have been working, okay.
No, I was just going to say that, and thank you, we were working with Gary. We were talking with Gary about potentially alternative sites, because we have heard here, listen, right project, wrong place. So we actually identified a project or a property in Gary 6200 Industrial Highway. But once we approached Gary with that property, the next day Gary put out an RFP, which, you know, on March 10th, that was due 2 weeks later on the 24th, which is an incredibly quick turnaround. We met that RFP, right? We had Carl working on plans. It was a 72-acre site. Part of it was wetlands. There was a big sewer pipe running through half of it. So, you know, we rushed to do new plans for this site in 2 weeks, which is not easy. It's not cheap. And we submitted our RFP, and we did not win that RFP. There was another company, apparently, you know, that RFP came out March 10th, and supposedly they're gonna be building in May, is what I've heard. So, again, we were ready to pursue that site, but we didn't win the bidding. And again, there were other sites that were presented that Carrie presented, and a lot of them were contaminated.
I understand. I can imagine 6200 Industrial Highway would be highly competitive because of its industrial amenities, or its amenities to industry. Councilwoman Brown, please.
Just one other thing. We sat here and went back and forth about Edison School, okay? We were collecting nothing, okay? We went back and forth, back and forth. Then one of our council members stepped up and said, we will go ahead. They took the truck stop. I wasn't in favor of a truck stop, but they took the truck stop. So they built the truck stop. It's paying taxes. We're collecting money. I mean, at some point, our city has got to do something to collect some money. We do not have revenue. We cannot afford to pay more to our policemen, our firemen, our city workers, because we don't have the revenue. And we need to understand that we're tax-based. We are tax-based. And if we don't collect revenue, we don't get anything. And they built that truck stop. I don't know how much traffic is going there because I don't live over that way. But it looks nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
And they're paying taxes.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. I think, though, Councilwoman Brown did allude to one of the concerns that I have, especially since, we're talking about Jurek. What's there now doesn't look anything like the pretty pictures that they showed to the public and to the community when they developed it. And that's been an ongoing issue because once we do this, we do lose control of how the place looks, and it's a long road back. But I appreciate Councilwoman Brown's comments about property tax collection.
I would just add that I'm not sure if they had architectural design control in the Jurek trucking, but we're willing to do that in this design. And then we actually spoke to Corey this morning regarding those 5 concerns she had with the 50-foot height, the setbacks, all that stuff. So we're willing to comply with all of those recommendations. And, go ahead.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
I have a question for Attorney Williams. When we ask these questions and we want specific things, don't we put stipulations, or can you address that?
Yes, and I think it goes back to Councilman Winstington's question as well. There can be conditions placed in the ordinance, and those measures would have to be met to allow them to take the next step. So if there is any consternation or hesitation, you could put the safeguard, you could actually go and amend the record and put everything I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but the planner stated. You can substitute all of those measures into the ordinance if that was the desire of the body. So yes, there can be conditions that would allow you some control. But the building permits and things of that nature, that is an executive function. But yes, if conditions are placed in the ordinance, you can make sure that those conditions are adhered to. And there can be timeframes placed in the ordinance, that the structure must be in place, completed. All of those can be placed in the ordinance.
I think that might be necessary and would give everybody better feelings about this. Councilman Washington.
I'm glad you said what you said because my question never got answered, but you confirmed what I wanted to happen. Because the question was about the 5 pillars that Ms. Sharp talked about, and you stated that you would be willing to speak with her and the department about coming to an agreement about those 5 pillars. So, Madam Chair, what I would recommend is that we send this back to the Planning Commission with them working directly with Ms. Sharp and the administration so they can work out those issues. Because, and Attorney Reeves, the reason why I'm saying that is because when you look at putting something in the ordinance, my question is it better to go back to the Planning Commission so it could be directly dealt with Corey, or when you talk about putting it in the ordinance, how does that work?
There's no
Madam President,
Councilwoman Brown?
I know I've been here a long time, and we have done that in the past. We have put stipulations in the ordinance so that if a certain criteria is not met, that person they can't continue to move forward. We've done that in the past, and we can continue to do that.
Councilwoman Brown, I'm with you 100%. I just wanted, however we do it, give them that opportunity. If this is an ordinance, I'm fine with that.
We've done it in the past.
Okay, I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
Mr. Councilman Washington, we had this issue. There's no legal mechanism within the statute that forces this body to allow the Planning Commission to reconsider.
Okay.
For that reason, any changes or amendments would have to be placed by substitution in the actual ordinance.
Okay. Madam Chair, let me ask Attorney Williams, and because I wasn't on the council when you did that before, how does that process go about where we could change and get those stipulations in that ordinance? Do we send it back to our committee and have that worked out with them and then bring it back, or do we suspend and come back in 2 weeks?
We've done it both ways. If you think it's a task that can't be worked out today, then you could send it back to committee and you'll have more time. If it's something that you believe and both parties are willing to accept the 5 recommendations made by the planning department, then it could simply be a motion to amend by substitution on the floor. So either mechanism will work, and we've done them both ways.
And the reason why I asked that, because Ms. Sharp said a whole lot of stuff. And if we're gonna do it tonight, we're gonna be here for a minute. So, I mean, Ms. Sharp, can you speak to that? Because I heard 5 things that you spoke on, and I don't know if we'll be able to get an agreement without some kind of recess or eventually going back to committee. Huh?
Excuse me, Madam. Oh,
What's
I'm
the
sorry.
time? Oh, what's?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Matt.
Go ahead.
There's a couple things going on here. One of them is definitely a timing issue. I agree with Renzer about that it needs to stay at the legislative body level now that it's here. And that if you want to consider something, it would go back to the committee. I had a discussion with Marco for a minute. We have to realize that the state statute, which is binding, says in this particular case, if the legislative body, in this case the council, does not make a decision within 90 days from the date of certification, then the project is denied. Then the petition, I apologize, then the petition is denied. I think that day is May 20th or something. That day is May 20th.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance, obviously, to talk to either Kyle or Christine, but if we went back to the committee, I think that'd be an excellent place to try to get these issues buttoned up or tied down or resolved or whatever euphemism we want to use to try to get it resolved so that when it comes, and you can do it, I don't know when I apologize, I don't know when the next committee meeting is, but it would be quicker than a plan commission meeting, and I think that's the inappropriate place. I agree with Renzer. So if we did that, then it could come back to your body, and we'd still be within the time frame where we'd be in compliance with the state statute.
I think that's a good plan moving forward.
No, I
I'm
agree
sure
with it. I agree that it needed to go back somewhere.
To the
I just knew
committee.
it was a time factor, and they needed enough time to be able to get with the administration, so when they came back to committee, they hopefully can have an agreement before the public. So I'm fine with that.
Okay. Is there a motion then?
I make a motion that we take CPO, Council Pending Ordinance 2025-17.
Councilman Washington, I think first we have to withdraw the motion
Okay.
for passage.
Okay. I make a motion for withdrawal of passage of CPO 2025-17.
I'd like to make a motion, I don't want to withdraw
I did, just second it.
CPO 2025-17.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Yes. Councilman Halliburton.
Yes.
Councilwoman Ivy,
Yes.
Councilman Tolliver,
Yes.
Councilman Washington.
Yes.
Councilman Winston,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Latham.
Yes.
Madam President, the vote is 9-0.
With the vote of 9 yeas and 0 noes, the motion to pass CPO 2025, I forgot what number we were on, 17, is withdrawn. Now, is there a motion do we need a motion to send it back to committee?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion to refer CPO 2025-17 back to the Planning and Development Committee with a, should I just wait for a second or just give the date and time? Because I was going.
Either way.
Okay. With the Planning and Development Committee hearing scheduled for Monday, April 10th at 5:30 p.m. with a public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, April 15th. Is that the wrong date? Hold on, wait a minute. I think it's Thursday. Thursday, April 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday. All right, Madam Chair, with the Planning and Development Committee here is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th at 5:30. April 8th? Okay, I'm sorry, April 8th at 5:30 PM with a public hearing scheduled for Tuesday, April 15th at 6 o'clock PM.
Thank you, Councilman Washington.